My boyfriend and his best friend have uninvited me from a week-long vacation because they want to go together. Yeah, without me. My boyfriend wanted to go on vacation this summer to his mom's friend's house in Hawaii with me and his two best friends, 25 male and 29 female. We had been planning this all spring, and at some point, 25 male dropped out of the trip, leaving just the three of us. For context, my boyfriend and I have been going out since November, and it's been serious. We've been talking about moving in together, and we basically both agree that this is a long-term situation and that we're in for the good. In early June, once 25 male unexpectedly dropped out of the trip, 29 female called my boyfriend and told him that now it was just the three of us. She didn't feel comfortable with me going on the trip, since she didn't know me that well, and she didn't want to be a third wheel. She said that if I were to go, she would not go on the trip. Without telling me that this was happening, they changed the plans and made it a trip, just the two of them, and changed the location to a beach in Costa Rica. I was trying to figure out when to ask for time off this summer and have not heard news about the plans. So I asked my boyfriend which week in August I should be setting aside for the Hawaii trip. He let me know that actually he had talked to his friend, and that she said she did not want to go if I was going. So he made up his mind and said he's gonna go alone with her, straight to Costa Rica. He said that we could go another week later, maybe to Mexico City or something. I was upset and tried to talk with him about how the situation made me feel, especially since this wasn't a case of separate trips being set up ahead of time. This was a case of me being invited and then uninvited from a week-long tropical vacation with a girlfriend, of who I've never even met before. We eventually decided to do a trip together in Copenhagen, which we both wanted to visit as some sort of compensation. I also asked to meet her so that I could feel more comfortable with him going on the trip. So we spent the 4th of July going to see her and her boyfriend in the city where they live. And although it was nice to put a face to a name, it was ultimately a very cold trip, and she was not at all welcoming to me. I was actually having red flags. My boyfriend remarked on how unfriendly she was, though, to both of us. He thought and said that he was surprised that she did not act so warmly to me. I went out of my way to try to get to know her and her boyfriend. I'm very outgoing and friendly, and usually this would just be easy. But it didn't really click. Even after several days, they were somewhat cold to each other as well. They bickered a little bit about their future and his own 3-week trip without her that was scheduled for the same time as their trip. By the way, this had been scheduled before ours had. This had been my effort to feel better about the trip. So I told my boyfriend that I still did not feel comfortable with how things are, and that I was feeling insulted by the way it was all handled. I tried to make things smooth between all of us, and I asked him to please come up with something that could help me feel better about the trip. On a visit to his family, they asked about the trip, and they were all shocked that he would have arranged it this way, and let me know that they would be furious if they were in my position. Which triggered a fight in which I asked him to please help come up with a strategy to make me feel better and more secure about them going without me. He said that he would never do this kind of thing again, which feels like not much of an offer since this kind of once-in-a-lifetime trip to begin with. He kind of offered to not go on the trip, but he'd already paid for the tickets, made arrangements, and I did not want to stop their trip and be resented by both him and his best friend. He asked me to give him some ideas of how to make me feel better, and wanted me to just tell him what to do, and stalled, until it was finally the day of the trip. He bought me a bag of peanut butter cups, and I drove the two of them to the airport. I feel so disregarded and disrespected in this whole situation. I want to break up with him, but I don't want to burn up something that has otherwise been really good. What's up, guys? Mr. Redito here. Oh man, there's a lot of red flags in this story. I'll tell you right now, if I was in this position, I would not be happy about this trip. Guys, there's a complete update. It came out 10 days later. And in this update, we're going to see a letter that OP shares with her boyfriend, and man, things get messy. I hope you guys are having a great day. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and click that subscribe button, and let's see what's up with this update 10 days later. I was really upset the day I dropped him off, and he was texting me, but I wasn't responding. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I didn't want to do anything at all in the state I was in. I waited until the next day, and then I sent him a thought-out text message, letting him know that I did not feel safe nor loved in the way the trip was handled, and that I would be dropping his things off at his place and leaving his keys with a neighbor. He called, but didn't leave any message, and then he messaged me that he did not understand. Yeah, I bet you don't. The rest of the week, he called and messaged me, but I couldn't bring myself to pick up or text back. On Thursday, I think that he realizes that I was serious, and he asked me some questions about the logistical things. I told him which neighbor his key was with, etc., but that's basically it. When he got back and saw all his things at his place, he got pretty frantic. He called and left me a pretty long message. I was working all day, but also I still did not want to respond. He just asked me to please explain. He said he didn't understand what was happening. So, the next day I sent another text message making it crystal clear that it's over. He got upset, sent me a bunch of text messages in a row about how he didn't understand why I was throwing away everything that we built. He left me with a voicemail that was really angry, that said he had no idea why I was upset and that he did not accept the breakup because he had no say in it, and that he wanted me to tell him the evil story that I've made up about him to his face. Well, I wasn't going to deal with him while he was acting like this, so I wasn't going to respond to him, and I just wanted to remain calm, but this deeply upset me. So I sat down and I wrote him a letter. It's long, so skip over it if you want and go to story number 2. But I tried to call him, and I started crying and told him I'd just send him a letter instead. This is what I typed up. The time that we had apart has given me some good space to think. I've had a chance to think about things that are important for me in a relationship, and I see that we should not be together. I'm sorry that I've been asking for change, things about your life that you shouldn't have to change at my request. I understand that. From the very start, this trip has made me insanely disrespectful way, and which it started out from you being given an ultimatum by your female best friend, who I've never even met, that either she goes or I go, and you picked her. You did not offer to have her meet me. Theoretically, I was your long-term partner, so this would have made a lot of sense. You did not encourage her to find someone else to come, and you did not consult me at all. That's enough for most people to have a deal breaker right there. However, I still stayed. This is a person who you have a history with. That is not entirely clear to me. Here's what I understand. Some bad rumors got started about the two of you, which include a night spent together with her while chilling out, and while you were also dating someone else. Apparently nothing happened, and the other thing I understand is that you were interested in her romantically at some points. Theoretically others, and points is that she started dating her boyfriend, and that just closed the door on things for you, didn't it? According to what I also understand, it took a long time for 20 females' boyfriend to feel comfortable with you being around. But you apparently worked to ultimately make him feel comfortable with you. After, I'm not sure how long. This is the completely unknown person who shut me out of a trip that I was originally going to go to. And you did not tell me that this was happening until I asked when the trip to Hawaii is. You purchased tickets in another very disrespectful situation, in which I've cooked dinner and had guest presents, and you chose to go into my room for well over an hour to select tickets with her, in which I repeatedly ask you to please come to dinner because you say it'll just be a few more minutes, honey. There's absolutely no reason for doing it, and at that time in that situation, seeing as how she's in the same time zone as us, has a 9-to-5 job, this makes me feel sick to my stomach. So, to make myself feel better about this whole arrangement, I tell you that I want to meet this person. On my request, we arrange a trip to go meet her and her boyfriend. A brief trip in which they are, and explicitly agree, inexplicably cold. The first conversation that we have is one in which 29 female and her boyfriend argue about how she DM'd him while he was already in a relationship and got him to date her instead. You tell me about conversations that 29 female has had with you recently, in which it seems implied that there's some real instability in their long-term relationship, stuff about kids and dogs. I have a discussion in which I let you know that I see that and that it worries me. But let's flash back to the future. Ultimately, it appears that the original plan, to meet at my place and hang out, do board games and game night before the two of you go brisk away on your little trip, has been cancelled. And the 29 female will be staying at our place, but not hanging out with us at all beforehand. You attribute it to not bringing it up with her early enough and telling her the clear plan. This is apparently not something that was discussed even 2 nights before the trip, This upsets me. You do not know what to do. I don't blame you. At this point, it was well out of hand. I don't know what to do either. There's no good solution that I can think of besides waiting for the trip to be over. I tell you that either I have to get over it or I have to break up with you, and that I don't want to break up with you, but my ability to get over it is rather worn down. Well, then she arrives at our place, late, and I have to wake up the next morning to take the two of you to the airport at 5 a.m. After this leads up, I know that you can tell how unhappy I am. I'm fully, absolutely known that you can tell how unhappy I am. But you still leave. And when I don't respond to your text messages, you text me to tell me that you hope I'm okay and you're going to bed. No phone call, nothing. The rest of the week was rough. My text to you was met with, essentially, quote, "I'm sorry you feel this way. You tell me that I'm being unfair." There's no acknowledgement, and there still has not been, that this trip or freaking honeymoon destination, whatever you want to call it, as we've discussed before, could be a crazy and horrible thing to go through with even, I don't know, a semi-blessing from me. This is not something that people in a relationship have to deal with. This is not something that people in a relationship do. Besides, well, us, I guess. In the end, all of this to say that I have felt very serious emotional needs to go seriously unmet in a way that's a deal breaker for me, and I am done. Well, guys, after a little bit, he did write me back an apologetic email in which he accepted responsibility for most things without any argument, except he denied anything that had to do with his relationship with her making me feel uncomfortable. And he's saying that I can handle their relationship, I just don't want to try. He said that the only thing that made their trip bad for me was my own perspective. So I wrote him back that trust has to be built, and that he put too much strain too early on a relationship in which he had not developed the trust. He once again agreed and apologized. For me, it ended on a pretty amicable note, but this style of relationship really doesn't work for me, and I don't feel like his responses to me really healed or changed anything specifically. So guys, I stand by my decision at this point. It's over. I blocked him, I've ghosted him, I'm moving on. So this story was crazy. The comments were all over the place. I could not believe what I was reading. Let's read a couple comments though and talk about it in the comment section what you guys think. I think it would have been harder for OP to stay broken up if she'd left earlier. If she'd said, quote, "This is a deal breaker," and left, he'd panic and cancel the trip. She'd think, oh, finally he gets it, and then take him back. Then the relationship would die a slow death of him guilt-tripping her about her being, quote, irrational, and that time she freaked out over nothing, and all the sacrifices he's made for her, blah, blah, blah. It would have been messy. So let me know your thoughts on this story, guys. Drop it down below in the content section, and let's go ahead and look at story 2. Child's father is pushing me to be a part of my child's life after we agreed I was to be void of parental responsibility. I never wanted kids, but it became accidentally pregnant during a rocky, half-separated relationship. I was completely set on having an abortion, but I chose the wishes of the father out of moral obligation. I still remember he was begging me on his knees to keep the baby, crying, distraught. He promised me that I would not have any responsibility over the child, that he would provide full care, and all he asked was that I just give him the chance to have his child. It took me about a week to decide. I considered getting a lawyer, but our relationship was improving and I simply trusted him. After I had her, I told the nurses to give her to him. He was happy, I knew I made the right decision, and we went our separate ways. He looked after her for 3 months when I started getting phone calls. Whether he could not get her to stop crying or he was worried that there was something wrong with her. He was calling me every single day. He admitted to me, quote, "I don't think I'm up for all this myself." And I told him she needed to be put up for adoption before she gets much older, which he intensely disagreed with. I started to push harder for adoption, but he was completely immovable on the subject, and the matter needed both parents' consent. He started shaming me for not looking after her, started telling me how he wasn't able to give her the care she needed. At one point, he actually took her to my house on the weekend for a, quote, visit. Well, when I mentioned how heavily we had discussed this, and how I didn't want to be anything to do with the child, he said he wasn't aware of how much he wouldn't be able to handle it, and he simply needs me. So, I'm seriously considering leaving the state and completely ghosting him because I am not taking care of this child. If you guys have any advice on maybe what you would do in this situation, drop it down below. I much appreciate it. So it looks like for this story, the top comment hands down was this comment. You need to get a lawyer ASAP. Hopefully, he'll find a way for you to only be responsible for child support. Your, quote, moral obligation is about to bite you in the butt, big time, forever. Sorry to be harsh, but you made a huge mistake not getting this all in paper before the kid was born. That's when OP actually replied to this comment by saying this. Is there a chance the legal system would determine that I'm responsible for the child? Are parental rights easy to waive? Coupled with the fact my ex is set on not giving her up for adoption, the idea of taking this to court sounds pretty concerning. So guys, this is a very sticky situation. OP has not updated anymore, but if OP updates, you guys will be the first to hear about it. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that. Guys, that's all the content for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, you know what to do. Smash that like button, subscribe, and I'll catch you later.